Live from Matthews Yard.
Hi, Carol.
I'm here.
Great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
Hey, I'm really glad that you said you will speak to us on Croydon Radio. I just wanted you to tell us a bit more about your diagnosed with a brain tumour.
Well, I had no idea that I had a brain tumor. I had some symptoms before this, but it all started when I went to, I had back surgery the year before this. So I was driving up to San Francisco to see the doctor up there, and I used to get nauseous and vomiting when I would drive long distances like that, like 4 hours. So that's the first thing I noticed was the nausea and vomiting when I drove long distances. But then I had a couple of spells, like a couple months before that, at home, either at home and also at work. I would fall down. I fell down several times at work. I fell down at home, and at first I didn't put it together at all. I didn't even think of that, a brain tumor, of course. I thought, my husband even thought when he saw me here at home on the patio, that I had laid there for quite a while. Like, I don't even know how long it was, because luckily my cat, strangely, my cat meowed enough to wake him up in order for him to come and find me and pick me up off the ground. I was just kind of out of it, you know. I was awake, but, you know, I knew what was going on, but I couldn't get up. My husband came out and picked me up off the patio. He said, you know, there's something wrong with you. You need to go get checked, like go to the doctor or something, because this isn't right. He thought maybe it could have been maybe a blood clot or something. But then, I don't know, it was just a couple days later is when I went to the courthouse for jury duty. And when I left, I went down the ramp. It was a handicap ramp to go to my car, which was parked there. And I had a problem with going down slopes like that, because it happened to me several times before. They weren't as steep as that, but I would go down this slope and I would think, gee, why can't I get my balance here? This is weird. And all of a sudden that ramp was real steep, so I just went down it, and all of a sudden then I realized that I'm going to fall. And I fell, broke my glasses, and luckily some people there helped me, and they called the ambulance and got me to the emergency room at the local hospital there. And I was kind of in and out of consciousness. I wasn't really, I sort of was aware, but I didn't know exactly what was happening and all that. But they took me in and did a CT scan. My husband's cousin and his wife were my emergency contact people, because my husband was very difficult to get a hold of at work. So they came, Ron and Linda came and into the emergency room and they said, oh, you have a brain tumor. And I wasn't even totally aware of what was going on either. I remember them telling me that, but I don't remember, you know, much after that. But soon after that, I went totally unconscious. I was in a coma at that point. They even drove me down to the hospital, which was about an hour away, and I don't remember any of that. I was just totally unconscious.
I've never heard that before, in terms of somebody
just going
into a coma. I know that people sometimes get put into a coma after they've had surgery, but that must have been incredibly scary.
The neurosurgeon that did my surgery, of course, my husband had to be called from his cousins, and he went down and saw me at the hospital, actually saw the neurosurgeon, but the neurosurgeon told us at the time, of course I was unconscious, but that the tumor was going crazy. That's the best way I can explain it to you, that it was just going crazy, and the neurosurgeon thought it was cancer. That's what he immediately thought of. It was cancer. Well, of course, then I had to have 2 craniotomies because, I had brain swelling. And so I had 2 craniotomies.
How long did you have to wait for your operation? I mean, when you came out of the coma?
It was something like 11 or 12 days that I was in a coma. And I had already had the surgery, the craniotomy at that time, 2 craniotomies actually. And so I couldn't talk, and I couldn't move my right side. And so I couldn't communicate with anybody that was coming into the ICU with me at all. So I couldn't ask them any questions or anything. I just saw them and I couldn't ask them any questions.
Did you know who they were? Did you know where you were and who the people were?
I knew I was in the hospital when I came out of the coma, but
it must have been quite scary to wake up. You don't know where you are properly. That must have been really scary.
It was kind of scary that way. I mean, this happened in 2008. I don't remember a lot, but my husband was very thankful and grateful that I finally woke up, and he held my hand and practically cried there. And I guess he and my daughters, when they went home that night when I was having the emergency surgery, emergency craniotomy, that the doctor didn't think I would live till the morning. And so they prayed, all 3 of them, my husband and my 2 daughters, all prayed for me. And God saved my life, that's all I can say. I had a lot of problems in the meantime, but...
You've had the operation, so then you have your recovery at hospital, and then you had to go to a lot of the rehabilitation for a lot of things that you've then now got. You were affected by the operation. What were the things that you were at the rehab for?
They drove me back to near where we live, and it was only about 15 minutes away from here. That was an hour away from the hospital. But anyway, we're here at the rehab hospital. It was physical therapy, occupational therapy, and speech therapy. I had all 3.
And when you first had that, did you feel? I mean, I went to rehabilitation for exactly the same as you, and I remember not being sure as to whether I was going to be fixed when I first got there. Because for my speech, I wasn't sure how much speech do you get back. I mean, how did you feel at first, from where you were then to where you are now?
In the rehab hospital, my husband kept asking the speech therapist, he says, why can't she talk? Because I still was not talking as much as I should, like normal. And we figured it was just because of the tube that they had in my throat, because it was in my throat for like 11 or 12 days. And so your voice gets, it affects your voice. And so you're kind of hoarse and all that. So,
what were the problems that you had physically?
The paralysis had pretty much gone away. I still have some, even today, 7 years after the surgery, I still have some neuropathy below my knee into my foot on my right leg. And I still have the 2 small fingers of my right hand. Those are kind of numbish, but the neuropathy bothers me, especially in my leg and foot. Most of my foot it's kind of, I can't really explain it, but anyway, it's neuropathy. So it still bothers me even now. It'll probably never go away. I'll still have it, always have it.
How was your scar and things? Did everything heal?
Well, that's another story. I went back. The way the neurosurgeon at that time that I had at that time didn't put my bone flaps back into my head. I guess that's something that they do now, but found out that neurosurgeon was old school, which is not a good thing. He was elderly. He was almost 70 years old. He really shouldn't have been operating on people, But he put my bone flap back in about, I don't know, I'm just guessing, like 3 weeks after I got home from the rehab. And I had to put 2 bone flaps back in. Well, after I had that surgery, it took a couple months, and then I realized, something isn't right here, and that my scalp wouldn't heal. It was still black or brown, and that's just not normal. And so I kept going to him, and he didn't even say anything at the first, but later on, as time went on, I said, he didn't say the actual word or what the term that they call it, but he had me go into a CT scan at my local hospital, and he suspected that I had an infection in the bone flap. So then I got sent to a plastic surgeon, which I'm still going to, the same guy.
And this is 7...
It's been almost...
Yeah. 8,
pardon?
So that's like 8 years you've had to do that. Is it 8 years or 9 years? I can't think.
Well, it's 7 years.
Wow.
I went to the plastic surgeon in December of 2008 is when I first saw him. And I'm still going to him because I've had so many problems with the bone flap and had it taken out. And I mean, I could get into a long story here, but I don't really want to go into a long story. But basically, they had to take the bone flap out in January of 2009, and then I was stuck with no bone flap, and he put a skin graft on my head. And so I had that several times over the last 7 years. And
so they do skin grafts. Is that what they do when every time you go you have to have a skin graft, and then they...
I can't even count how many I've had. I've had most of them taken from my left hip, left thigh. I've had like 5 or 6 skin grafts. And then I also had muscle grafts. I had 3 of those taken also. And that's because all of these infection that I had.
It must have been quite disheartening that you've had to keep going back, and you're kind of hoping they're going to figure this out, and it must be really disheartening for you. So, but I can imagine your faith and things must have really been a part of keeping you going.
It helped me all this time. I mean, if I wouldn't have had God in my life, I don't know what I would have done, because it was very discouraging. After all these, it seems like nothing went right.
Yeah.
I mean, everything went wrong. And so it's just very, very discouraging.
Yeah. In November 2010, it said here that you had a seizure. Was that your first seizure?
That was the first seizure I had ever had. They kept giving me the medication to prevent seizures while I was in the hospital and also afterward. And I was on one. I was allergic to that, so then I went to another one, and then I went to a neurologist, and he wanted to change me from that one to another one. And anyway, I had never had a seizure at that point. This was in spring 2009, summer 2009. I thought, well, I haven't had a seizure, so I gradually tapered myself off of the Keppra. Well, then about 1.5 years, out of the blue, I had this seizure in November 2010, and it was a grand mal. It was a real big one. I went unconscious for about 15-20 minutes. Luckily, my husband was home. Usually he's at work by that time in the morning, like 5:15 in the morning, and it was his day off, so he helped me. He said there was a little, drainage or whatever from my mouth, so I was unconscious for 15 or 20 minutes.
Did he call the ambulance?
No.
Okay.
But at that time I dislocated my shoulder. I didn't realize it until I went into the living room for a while, and then I said, my right shoulder is dislocated. Went back to the bedroom and told him. He said, okay, well, we'll have to go see the doctor. Well, I wasn't going to go to the emergency room because it was only a couple hours till the doctor opened up. So
yeah. Oh gosh, that must have been very painful.
well, actually, because it
really?
was so badly dislocated, I felt nothing.
Wow.
Now I still have problems with it because I have to exercise it regularly, otherwise the shoulder can pop out. And then when it pops out and it's not as bad as that time when I first dislocated it, I can lift my arm, but I can only go so high because of it wants to keep, it doesn't go as good as it should be. But anyway, what happened was I went back to bed. So, and then then the seizure happened, and so for some reason maybe this is normal when you have a seizure, but I didn't know what to expect. All of a sudden I couldn't breathe. And so my husband was asleep in bed, and so I tried to flail around with my arm or that type of thing, and I think that's why I dislocated it, because I was in bed, that part was good, but I dislocated my shoulder really badly. So
you've then gone through all these things. Were you then starting to look for support and groups and looking for somewhere to give you some kind of understanding of what you've gone through?
I don't remember what year it was, probably sometime in 2009, a relative told me about meningiomas, and I got in touch with them. It's online, and so basically the only thing I have is brain tumor groups, either online or on Facebook. Nobody here has any support groups. There is one an hour north of me, but that's an hour north. I can't get up there. So basically it's just on the computer, Facebook and stuff.
But have you ever had anyone else to meet outside of, online, that you've met someone around the corner from you? Have you had the chance to?
Just if they do even have brain tumors, they don't tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
So I'm just on my own. I have to find my own support groups online and basically on Facebook too.
Although there's many bad things about Facebook, that was one of the best things about Facebook was the groups.
Yes.
Because
that's always helped me.
And because we are all around the world, there's someone awake all 24 hours, so you can always find somebody to talk to.
Yeah, somebody, if it's, here, like, UK is 8 hours ahead of us, and so, I may pose a question and somebody else will answer it from another part of the world, and so it's always different. Nice to have that.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, thank you so much that you've been sharing your story with us, to know that there's other people out there that have gone through the same thing. It's not just you. You're not on your own, because it can feel like a very lonely journey.
Yeah.
Otherwise.
I don't feel alone.
No. Well, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Live from Matthews Yard.